It seems like every day there's something else in the news. Some other violent attack on Asians, people of color, and minorities. The murder of Christian Hall, a Chinese-American 19-year-old who was in a mental health crisis, was shot by Pennsylvania State Police, even though his hands were up in surrender. The Atlanta spa shooting that resulted in the murder of 6 Asian women. It was a hate crime. The shooter was a white male, 21 years old, who claimed he was eliminating his temptation. Asian Americans have been targeted in almost 3,800 hate crimes in the past year. Today I wanted to do a kind of different video and just talk and chat about just kind of my experience growing up as an Asian American. I know it's been a difficult time for the AAPI community, and my heart definitely goes out to everyone who has been impacted by these tragic events. It's unfortunate that COVID has really exacerbated the hate towards Asians and all of the rhetoric that, the virus was an Asian virus and just adding fuel to the fire. So I kind of wanted to share my experiences growing up Asian American and some of the things that were said to me that were not okay, and obviously they do not compare to violent acts of racism, and I'm very fortunate that I haven't experienced that. And again, it's just horrible to know that people are being targeted for their race, whether they're Black, Asian, Native American, a person of color. It's unfortunate that racism is just still so prevalent in our society. I grew up in a town that was mostly white people, so there were a handful of Asians. I kind of always knew I was different. Obviously as I got older that became clear was because I was Asian, and clearly, different background, different culture, skin's different, hair's different. I think I always just wanted to blend in with my peers. So I think it's funny because even in elementary school, I remember some girl asking me if I liked the only other Asian boy in my grade, and I didn't, and I was just like, I feel like she said that just because he's Asian. So, we're all young kids at the time, so I can't really blame her. It's just that you just start making those associations from such a young age. In middle school, some white male in my class, I remember him asking me how big I could open my eyes, and just if I could open my eyes any bigger. And I remember it registering, but at the time, again, I didn't say anything, but it was clearly a racist remark. And again, I just didn't want to draw more attention to the fact that I was different, and I didn't want him to feel like he got the jab. Yeah, and definitely the whole Asian eyes is just something that growing up was always kind of made fun of, and you always try to just brush it off and try to laugh along with everyone, but it's just, a very kind of childish thing to point and make fun of someone for. I mean, even in New York, where it's such a liberal place and there are people from so many different cultures and backgrounds, I've gotten a few times, ni hao, and just trying to talk to me in Mandarin or Cantonese, or, saying those things. And I think when it happens here, in the US, that further confirmation that you're different and, yeah, that, you might not belong here. The story that I always remember is when I was going to class or trying to get to school during college. I was trying to walk past a group of friends. From what I remember, they were white or majority white, but as I was walking past them, kind of quickly to get around them, one of them called out, "Look at her, she's trying to rush off to her SATs." And I remember just being so annoyed, and I did turn back and just said, "Excuse me?" And again, that was the extent of it. I didn't, blatantly call them out for being racist. You just kind of realize even when you're an adult, these things can still happen, and it's frustrating. A frustrating moment for me was I was abroad at a bar, and someone had said, "Oh, I always wanted to be with a Japanese girl." There's always assumptions and sexualization of race, and it's just not okay. And yeah, again, I remember registering it but not calling them out for being racist because I didn't want to cause a scene. but it's frustrating that, you know, these things happen, and yeah, it's just frustrating. So yeah, growing up there were a lot of things that I was doing that my peers weren't doing, like going to Chinese school on the weekends, always practicing 2 instruments, and, you know, just, I guess, living up to some of those stereotypes. But it's not true for all Asian kids growing up. It's not true for every Asian household. So again, stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. They don't apply to everyone, and you can't just, you know, make those assumptions. There were definitely things that I would be embarrassed about or didn't want people to know I was doing because they wouldn't understand or they would be very confused by it. But I mean, looking back, I'm very grateful for everything that I was doing and, you know, my culture growing up, all of the amazing food and the language that I learned, and just the skills and kind of everything that I was, you know, brought up to, you know, really try to make the most of everything. And it's just so horrible and unfortunate that people of color and communities of color are still facing acts of violence just for their race, and it's just not okay. So I really wanted to just take this moment to chat and talk about this. Racism needs to end for all communities of color and people of color. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video shed some light on some of the frustrations the AAPI community is facing and just kind of my own personal frustrations with everything that has been going on. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.